Steve, anybody opposed to doing the announcement? I can call in there. There is four. Now it's out of the way. Like motion is passed. Land reclamation. You got feedback, Luke? There is four. Now it's out of the way. Like
Okay, we should be back. Good.
Kevin, you're doing the land.
Oh,
Yes, you are. Can you put it up? Please, you have it handy.
I've got one copy here.
not in the package. The Sault Ste. Marie Public Library is a gathering place where the community comes together, to share stories, to explore new ideas, and to gain knowledge of the past. It is through this unique position in our community that we support and promote truth and reconciliation with the Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge with respect that we are in the Robinson Huron Treaty Territory, that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and is known as Bawating. Bawating is the home to the Garden River First Nation, Patchewater First Nation, and historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. The library and we as individuals have a deep desire to bring about change in our community and move forward together as a diverse and inclusive peoples. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect.
Item number 2, declaration of conflict of interest and applies to closed as well as open. Anyone have any conflict with any businesses with that? Hearing none. Move on to number 3. Any additions, changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as printed. Anna, second. Mike? Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion's passed. Delegations number 4, and we have none. Chair's report is in the package. We started up in September. It's been pretty busy. I just want to talk about committees for a second and recognize again the work that all of you put in. It's like 7, and Matthew and myself. We spent our time with all of them, but that 7 hours of time would be taken up here by going through a lot of work that you've previously done. And I think it's important to recognize how much work you're doing on behalf of the Sault Ste. Marie Public Library. I appreciate that. Otherwise, we'd be here until about 10 o'clock tonight. And the focal documents are in the package. I said in June that I would include in September. One is the Truth and Reconciliation Plan. And I thought it was appropriate because as we go through strategic planning, it's another lens that we should be taking a look at and meeting that commitment to truth and reconciliation. Sorry about that. Trainees incoming. And the annual work plan from Tina Stevens. As well, just why I go there. This library. So November 14th and 15th, I'll be going to Queen's Park with other members of local to speak to different MPs about the big ones that are affect Sault Ste. Marie Library, but all the libraries across the province and what are Focus goals, sustainability for First Nations public libraries, the digital Ontario Digital Public Libraries, which is getting a lot of traction into government filings and trying to reinforce that. And the plug and public library operating grant hasn't been increased in 25 years. Is that right? Yeah. So the danger, it's kind of, you have to be careful how you approach that. The danger being that if we get an increase to the plug, the provincial then the municipal piece, we look at that and say, well, we can pull back on our committee. So we try to phrase that if we get an increase for libraries, that money would be almost, but compared to school boards envelope. So the money would have to be spent in certain areas, and that way municipalities would resist the impulse to claw back on their part. So so on the 14th and 15th of November, myself as well, there's numerous other board members will be on the hill. So I don't know, having that conversation with the different entities. Cultural Day is this coming Friday, and you have an opportunity to come down for the kids or yourself. The board is always good to see representation there. I asked the question about Indigenous participation in the cultural days. We're just in kind of, and I didn't, and that was not intentional on behalf of Mountie staff. They were, because of Orange Shirt Day, Reconciliation Day, they just couldn't get anybody at this point. So I don't think it was an oversight. It wasn't. It was just the time worked out. So that's still a go. Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We had a number of conversations with myself, Matthew, and various people at City Hall. I don't know what to say this. They were doing surveys on what the Parks and Recreation Master Plan should look like, and left the library out of the conversation and off the survey. So we raised that with the mayor and a number of members of council, and we heard back from Brent Lammy. He feels that it will be addressed, how the libraries fit into all that. So it opened up the door. We had that conversation. We brought it to their attention, put it in front of them that, you're spending significant dollars here. Don't ignore the library. The library is part of that Parks and Recreation plan. Good. Okay. Talked in June about no OLA board position. Open if anyone wants to think about doing that at provincial level and get a little bit more involved. Still there. Okay. And then board development and volunteer recognition. That's it. That was my report. Is there any questions? Judith? Otherwise, I will need a motion to accept that report. And Lisa second. Any opposed? Motion's passed. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone need anything? I can give enough to you. It's okay. Hearing nothing. Okay, then. So I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Separate motion for summary. Just motion to approve the summary of motion.
Just approve the.
Okay. Which would include the motion. Okay. Have a mover. Evelyn, second. Mike, any opposed? I'm going to set this one on fire. Record. Okay, then it's passed. Items removed, number 7, there are none. So we're good. And that's all of the committee work is in there. Again, I go back to that's an indication of the work we are doing. So. Number 8, information items. I feel pretty good.
We already spoke a little bit about couple of days, so I started recently over the last while in partnership with other community organizations to bring that family funding. And so that will be on Friday. Moving on to Orange Shirt Day, National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Staff will be recognizing the day You'll be wearing white shirts both on the Friday and the Saturday. And we'll have a number of passive things out to commemorate the day as well. Ontario Public Library Week is coming up. October, it's October 16th to 20th, and the theme this year is Libraries for Life, which we find in today. So keep your eye out. We're going to have programs most days of the week going through that week. OLA has a new executive director. We thought we would bring that to the board's attention. Michelle's been with OLA for quite a long time, and they are very excited to have her on board now in the executive position. We have the Authorpalooza. This is an annual event in which we celebrate local authors. And so we have a number of authors lined up to be here that day. So we encourage you guys to come out if you're available and check it out. And we'll also have some of the authors on our YouTube page as well. So we'll be showing them virtually. And then finally, we used to do a food for fines program at the library, but since we've eliminated almost all of our fines, we had to kind of move on into another direction. So we're now doing the food for thought food drive program. So those library locations will be collecting perishable food items during Ontario Public Library Week, and all the donations will be going to the soup kitchen. That's what I have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes.
I should have mentioned with OLA, they joined Vocal on Parliament Building from Queen's Park, and in that venture to work with the rest of the politicians. OLA and Vocal were essentially put together. For the same television. Thanks. Do I need a moment?
Good, just information.
No other questions. We'll move on to number 9, the field visit from Minister of Labor. Can I start? And you go for it and you pick up. So someone asked the Minister of Labor, called the Minister of Labor, and asked them to come in to do an inspection because they and anyone could do that if you feel your workplace is unsafe. I applaud that because I think, you know, if the workplace unsafe, call the Minister of Labor. I'm also very happy with the outcome of that. The report shows that there were no significant issues with safety and workplace violence and safety in this building. So it really supports the work Matthew's doing. It gave some advice, it gave some suggestions, but it did not issue an order. Minister of Labor issues an order if you're not familiar. And if you don't adhere to that order, you can be fined with other penalties, but that's a good place to start. There were no orders issued. So this is shared with all staff and us, and it's a public document. So again, I'm happy with the results.
I don't know if I have anything else to add, but I'm open if the report is in your board package. So if you have any questions regarding the report, and I would be happy to answer those.
Anyway, I have one. He talked about, it says it was not clear how workers in the workplace would be alerted to an incident and violence that is occurring. So there's lockdown procedures, right?
There are lockdown procedures. We have a number of procedures in our staff meeting. That particular comment was more so related to the response time of management. So even though management is responding to these, I would do a little bit of research before I address the entire staff in an email. And he was suggesting that perhaps the way I should approach it is send an email saying that there was an incident and that more details would be followed rather than just gather the information. So when there was an incident, I took security camera footage, like I spent time doing that. And so they just suggested, before going to find that footage and everything, and doing witness statements, just alert staff if there wasn't. So that's what it's referring to.
Thank you. What else? I'll just sum it up again and say, this is positive. There's, it supports the work that Matthew's doing in terms of violence in the workplace and the safety of the employees of this building. And, there's some things that the health and safety committee will probably take a look at and say, we can tighten this up a little bit, but there is no highlighted serious issue that must be addressed immediately. And I feel very comfortable with what you're doing based on what I'm doing. Thank you.
Yes, but ours would be shared with employees.
That particular procedure is dealing with the staff manual itself. Hasn't been out that long, although it, there was an emergency manual that predated it. So some of those procedures in there are new, some of them are carryover from previously. I believe the sleeping outside was a newer procedure, and so it is something that we have to review, because I think that's the incident that we're referring to there. So it is one that will have to be reviewed, because we were approaching it from a compassion standpoint, where we're doing wellness check.
Yeah.
And the wellness check turned on us, and so we have to think of a better approach going forward.
I think it highlights that there's so much press for isolated incidents, and it creates a culture of fear. And that Matthew or your team isn't doing enough. And I think this supports that he is doing the right things. He is trying to make sure that employees are protected at all time, not just in, this is what it's doing, but in terms of health and safety, it was a long way to do.
For sure, I agree, but there's, like there's new incidents that come out, new issues, and those have to be addressed, and if they're not like in a manual or what have you, so.
So we are taking this as a learning experience as well, and we're reviewing, and it is there is a current ongoing investigation related to that incident, in which there'll be recommendations for changes.
Okay.
Anybody else? We will move on to item 10, board development strategic planning updates. That's in your package, but just before we get to that, Matthew, you'll have 14.2 board development. I don't know, we haven't planned anything for that meeting. Should we work on a strategic plan for that meeting?
I think, yes, that should be a meeting where we do review some of our strategic plan. And then we will be speaking with OLS on the 26th. That's the new date for the strategic planning session. So, but I think we should do a little bit of work ahead of time. So I'm not suggesting that you go through the document, but I think we should talk about objectives and expectations leading up to the strategic plan.
Okay. So when is now?
Yeah, no, I don't expect you guys to give me all your comments and things that you want to change for like wording and stuff like that right now. So we don't need to work tonight. This doesn't have to be working in that respect. But I'd like to just review what has been done so far and what's currently left to do.
Okay, very good.
Do you mind bringing up the documents? So these draft goals and objectives, they're based on the workbook information that the steering committee put together. So the steering committee being the management team and the board members. And then we expanded and combined a lot of the thoughts and suggestions that you guys have had in that workbook. And we built on the goals as best we could. We tried to have several objectives for each goal. And so we did submit it to OLS early on in the summer, and they gave us some feedback. objectives, and so we brought it back to the management table. We did some more work on it, and we sent it back to us for more recommendations and suggestions, and we modified it some more. We didn't have as much work to do the second time around. And so this is what we've kind of landed on right now. This is not set in stone. This is just the working draft that we have right now. And what I'm going to be asking the board to do now is to review this after this meeting, the goals and objectives that are here, and highlight what you feel like might need to be altered or expectations changed. And then also if you feel like anything is absent from the objectives. So you look at the goal and say, oh, we really should be doing this, but it's not there. I don't see how that fits under any of these objectives. Then alert me, and then we can compile a finalized list of the objectives. That makes sense?
Yes. it would.
How would you like that, Mike?
Okay. That's a good question, and that's why we're trying to, how much.
If you have general feedback, but you don't have to go into the specific objectives.
It's just, we've been doing it there. 26.
That the 26th is the final OLS session. So
Oh, I'm
they'll be
sorry.
talking
So the
about
23rd.
So they'll be talking about implementation at that point. So we want to be closer to implementation. So based on what we have here so far, the management team also worked on an action plan. That action plan is available to all of you in the strategic planning folder on the Google Drive. And we will be able to go on there and see actions for each of these objectives. And there's a little bit more work that needs to be done there as well. So if you see an objective and you think, oh, it would be really great to add this to our action plan, by all means, go into the document and add. There's a few objectives where we found that we didn't have very many actions for it. And so we are currently trying to up those a little bit so that we can fully implement the plan. But we've done a lot of the legwork for you, and it's now kind of in your report to review what's been done so far and make any modifications or additions and point out anything that might be absent. Even if there's something that you feel like may not be achievable or something like that, by all means comment on it. And then if it's something we can have a discussion on, and then come back on the 23rd days during the development.
Does that answer your question? So something comes to me that's mine, just I look at community engagement and the fact what I included in my report about the indigenous lands. And so I don't see, these are all great objectives. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't see anything additional in regards to our indigenous community, whether it's urban aboriginals or garden and batch. How do we address that as an objective?
There are some in the idea, we say diversity, equity, and accessibility section. Because we do talk about truth and reconciliation called the action there. But also when you go into some of the action plans, you'll see that we'll want to create an indigenous advisory council for the library. And so even though it may not be set outright in the objective, in some of the action items, so we still see some of those indigenous items. So,
I think it needs to be obvious. You know what I mean? I don't want anybody to question that if it isn't a goal, or is it is not fully stated, use the word. Okay. But again, part of our community, part of language or. But I'm okay with that too.
Okay.
That's my thing. Okay. So, anything else that you want to talk? We're gonna be done too quickly.
That was my first thought as well, just looking at the main community objectives, the first thing, that was my first thought as well. I always think to do that. I was looking for that, just scanning it. I know I saw it in the idea section, but I think front and center is best, even if it is outlined in the for the implementation process. You know, yeah, front and center, I think it's best.
Don't have a big yes. There's such an important part.
Mhm.
I'm trying to address historic. Decolonization, I don't know what I mean, but that's all. It needs to focus. An obvious. Okay. That's all. What else? Okay, so follow up. You want feedback. Yes.
Ideally, I mean, we should take the 23rd as a day to actually sit down and work out the last wordsmithing and settle the final fix to it.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm anxious now because I see that we're getting towards the end of this program. It's been a long road. So, thank God it's getting there. And I'm seeing a final package and we deal with the council with it. I'm able to community. So before the 23rd, you want feedback from the board.
yes,
Or-
that would be helpful to incorporate into what's currently existing, and then what we'll do is we'll bring modified documents to that meeting, and then we will finalize that. What I can do is I can email a deadline to you guys following this meeting. And give you an idea of when I would need that information before.
So an email with this. You know, part of this. The deadline. Anything else? What else would you like?
You want to, like, the meaning of the bullet points of the revisions, or do you want, how do you want the feedback into it?
I mean, there's two approaches. Because they are Google documents, you could modify it directly into the document.
Okay.
And make comments that way.
Okay.
I think that would be easier and better for tracking than you would combine. And you might have an idea and Lisa have the same idea. And we both don't have to do it over. You don't have to copy each other.
So a little bit of homework. You'll send it out. The cutoff date. And then when the 23rd arrives. Maybe by the end of the road. It would be really nice to have this done this fall. It's been long.
I'm also working on a public document versus an internal document. So the public document is being more higher level. It's a nice clean document to give out to like city council or funders. And the internal document will have more of it actually kind of breakdown of exactly how we're going to achieve those goals.
The goal is still to launch it before the end of the year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so much time is allowed. It's just. So I'm starting to see. So.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah.
Soon. Anything else on this item? Good plan. Nothing else, then we'll move on. Ready? Resolved that the members of the Assembly Public Library Board move into closed session pursuant to the Public Libraries Act, section 16.4, closed meetings as a subject matter to be considered as labor relations and employee negotiations. We further resolved that should the said closed session be adjourned, the board may reconvene in closed to convene and continue to discuss the same matter without further authorizing resolution. It further resolved that the following individuals may attend, down with an alternate and Why did she not here?
She's in
She's gone in. Jen Martin. He's not standard.
Lori, sorry, Janelle Martin,
Janelle.
Lori Standish, and then also Dimitri. I don't know how to say his last name.
Thank you.
So we're gonna finish up those three.
We're gonna